Chapter 10 Janice and Alex. The story of Janice and Alex brings together two married couples. Janice is a happily married attractive blonde in her early 30s and a mother of 3 children. She has had alien encounters most of her life. Her husband Bob is not an abductee, although he is sympathetic to her problems. Overall, her encounters seemed pleasant and she was never threatened by her experiences until her son, a kindergartner, reported that he saw skinny boys in shiny suits, wearing sunglasses and walking through the bedroom wall at night. From that day on, she began to pay close attention to her own experiences and to her child's security. Were the aliens after her kids? Janice began to wonder about the coincidence of mutual dreams. Can closely bonded humans have similar dreams on the same night without direct contact? One is reminded of especially stories and the fictional Corsican brothers, but in hard experimental research conducted at the University of Minnesota in the late 1970s, many twins, raised apart from birth, were found to possess similar likes and dislikes, similar dreams and mate selections, even identical toothpaste choices. Janice noticed triangular marks, bruises and microscopic puncture wounds on her body, and she developed deep anxieties about the alien abduction phenomena as a negative event. Janice planned to attend my UFO support group to meet other abductees and to get some answers. She also began to pray for an answer from the higher powers. Please God, why me? Please let me remember. Instead of a direct answer to her prayers, the aliens distracted her with a projected image of a new lover. This lover met all of her romantic ideals and deepest emotional needs. Caught off guard, she didn't know she was so needy. She thought her husband Bob was perfect for her, she had no desire for another man, and yet, inner psychic needs began to change beyond her control. Further in the dream, she saw herself standing at one end of a beautifully landscaped garden. Other people were busily coming and going. The passers-by made no comment, but Janice vaguely remembered a line of poetry from T.S. Eliot, "People walking to and fro speak of Michelangelo." It was as if they were in another dimension and she was caught in some kind of virtual reality. In her recalled dream, Janice became aware of standing next to a tall sandy-haired man with a mustache. He wore a leather flight jacket, and when their eyes met, Janice sensed that this was her dream lover, and it wasn't Bob. His hazel eyes smiled at her. She loved him deeply, as if they had known one another for years. She felt happy and overjoyed, and thought to herself while looking into his eyes, "Do I know you?" The couple seemed to be connected at a deep soul level. Janice then saw several tall, robed aliens watching from a distance, seeming to approve of the connection. At that moment, Janice was so overjoyed that she had finally met the man she had been looking for all her life, that she forgot where she was, and the dream suddenly ended, leaving the image of this perfect lover clearly imprinted in her mind. She became upset, almost devastated, that the dream ended so suddenly. How would she find him again? Janice spent the next several days trying to keep the dream imagery alive, the man's face fresh in her mind, but it continued to fade. Intuitively she knew this man was real and she must find him. 2 weeks later, Janice attended my abductee support group. She was a bit skittish about meeting other abductees, thinking they may be crazy and she didn't want to be associated with them. On the contrary, Janice discovered that the people in the group were just like her, normal people, with families and typical jobs. At the group, Janice spotted a very tall sandy-haired man sitting at my kitchen table sampling my heavenly handmade chocolates. The more she looked at him, the more she thought to herself, "No, it couldn't be the man from my dream." At the break, the tall man sensuously brushed against her hip, and asked, "Where do we know each other from?" At that moment she knew it was him. She began to tremble and had to excuse herself to smoke a cigarette outside. She stayed outside several minutes, desperately trying to calm herself down. The anxiety was almost uncontrollable. Janice was afraid to go back to the group. She did not want Alex to see her so emotionally disheveled. She returned to the group reluctantly as the meeting reconvened. It was apparent to me that Janice and Alex were in a quandary as to how they knew each other. I've seen this happen before at support groups, and wondered if a love bite would soon develop. They exchanged phone numbers at the close of the meeting. At the time, Janice was too embarrassed to tell Alex of her dream. As if psychically connected, Alex said, "I don't know if I should tell you or not, but I think I remember you from an abduction dream." Janice continued to tremble for the duration of the meeting. She decided not to tell Bob of her experience with Alex. This failure to divulge the truth began a long series of little white lies and deceptions, which eventually created a rift in their 8-year marriage. The lies also covered up a number of secret meetings with Alex. For the month following the group meeting, Janice couldn't concentrate. She developed insomnia and caught a nagging cold that dragged on for weeks. She was in love with a man she didn't even know, a total stranger. She loved her husband, but this was a mystical kind of love, one that couldn't be easily disregarded. It was a gift of love sent from heaven. Even though Janice was happily married, she now became totally obsessed with her dream lover. Janice and Alex called one another on the telephone and talked as long as possible every day. Alex was strongly attracted to Janice as well. Although he was happily married, he found ways to be with Janice. The compulsion to be together was irresistible. They loved each other so much they would die for one another. It was as if their souls were enmeshed. As the love-bitten pair shared personal experiences, it became apparent that the aliens, or some intelligence acting behind the aliens, had set them up together, possibly since childhood. The psychic links and synchronicities were amazing. Alex could pick up on what Janice was feeling and would call her, and Janice could feel his thoughts. Their conversations revealed a shared abduction dream, which they eventually realized was a memory planted by the aliens. In the dream they saw a child they parented together. In another shared realization they saw Alex undergoing a neck and spine operation, a possible alien implant procedure, which allows the aliens to control and monitor the subject through the pons and the brain stem, the nerve-rich portion of the central nervous system that marks the transition between the brain and the spinal cord. Could this operation have modified Alex's brain chemistry in subtle ways? Alex put up an unusually strong struggle during the implant procedure. The aliens, who rarely meet force with force, achieved their deceptive goal, by using Janice, or at least her cover screen, to comfort Alex as he went through the procedure, thus increasing the strength of the bond between them. For Janice, the sound of Alex's voice had a profoundly tranquilizing effect. On weekends they were unable to communicate due to family obligations. These weekends seemed to last for days. Although futile, now that both had been love-bitten, they actively tried to avoid speaking on the phone, writing notes, or meeting in obscure cafes, but their compulsion to embrace, and to look into each other's eyes was almost intolerable. It was as if they were addicted to one another. For Alex, the addiction took the form of smelling her perfume, which delicately masked her body scent. To be out of contact had the effect of a progressively building tension for both victims. When they couldn't talk for days or weeks, it became a near-crisis situation. Vacations away with their own families were nightmares. The withdrawal was excruciating. It was like a drug addiction. The strong bond between Janice and Alex started to create tension in both of their marriages. Even though they had not crossed the line of sexual infidelity, the passion was becoming increasingly difficult to suppress and was growing disruptive. They secretly met on one occasion, which forced them to take major steps. Alex's compulsion to have sex with Janice grew to such a fever pitch, and Janice's willingness to receive that perfect passion was so overwhelming that they decided to avoid direct contact thereafter. The alien-bonded pair, suffering great emotional pain, eventually decided to temper their relationship and see each other only once each month and with witnesses along so no sexual compulsion could be acted out. By this time both spouses were fully aware that Janice and Alex had something going on. Janice became depressed. The monthly meetings were not sufficient. She wanted to cross the sexual line, but she realized there was an addictive quality to the love obsession. Even so, the flame for Alex was never completely extinguished. My support group was helpful, but it simply was not enough. Her depression deepened, and Janice, on the brink of suicide, realized she needed one-on-one therapy and probably medication. If she didn't get medical help as a means to cope with her feelings, she thought she would die. She began counseling with a qualified therapist twice a month. In addition, she stayed with my group and was able to empathize with others in the same situation. This outreach helped her gain perspective on her overall situation and insight into the seriousness of alien-manipulated obsessions. It took more than a year for Janice to come to a sense of balance. By this time, Alex grew uninterested and seemed switched off. This hurt Janice, but she always knew their love relationship was just an orchestrated drama that was somehow serving the aliens. However, the aliens did not give up. They matched Alex to another targeted love bite partner. In one of my support group sessions, Janice shared a recent abduction dream in which she saw Alex being set up with another, very beautiful, woman. This image evoked a great deal of jealousy in Janice. During that contact, the aliens communicated that the bonding between she and Alex will no longer be useful to them. Janice wanted to stop this from happening, and protested to the heartless aliens on the ship, but they simply ignored her pleas. The medical doctor gave Janice a prescription for Paxil, an antidepressant, and for a few months it helped. Luckily, her husband was aware of Janice's alien abductions and made efforts to understand. Had Bob not been such a supportive husband, the marital relationship might have dissolved and Janice might have easily taken her own life. The aliens eventually switched Janice off too. She described this switching off process as a release from the feelings she once had for Alex, but she also lost strong passionate feelings for Bob. This change in her obsessive feelings happened literally overnight, after an abduction dream. In spite of the seeming rejection, Bob stuck with the relationship, hoping their love life would return to normal. Janice eventually told my support group that she was able to stop taking the Paxil and was no longer inhabited by that insatiable need for Alex's presence or voice. Now that Janice was getting over Alex, she was able to look back and observe how things happened. She went through hypnotic regressions for the purpose of finding out what may lie behind some of the abduction bonding dreams. In one dream, the only thing she remembered was being with Bob when they were first dating, in which they wanted to make love. This urge was thwarted by her parents coming home suddenly. She realized that the operating screen was the premarital petting theme with her fiancé. Behind the screen imagery, Janice's insight revealed an alien clinical setting where she and Alex were being watched like puppets in some romance tragedy. Once Janice got to the core memories of these bonding encounters, she admitted that she felt used by the aliens. It was not such a romantic, rosy picture after all. Realizing this truth, Janice became annoyed with other abductee support groups and internet list groups who sugarcoat the abduction phenomena. She wondered how many other experiencers of extraterrestrial contact and abductions were, in actuality, deceived. She wished she could have told Alex of her discoveries, but now he was already long gone. Alex was transferred to another town and the two lovers never met again, but Janice continues to dream about him. Chapter 11: Missing in Action and the FBI Agent. The Mia Adams story first appeared in her book, The Essays. The updated material presented here was obtained from personal interviews. Mia Adams, a single woman in her early 50s, claimed to have been in contact with an alien intelligence throughout her life. She had no history of psychotic ideation, held a salaried job and lived a normal, Fort Lauderdale life. In 1988, her dreams and waking images intensified and she was compelled to research the UFO phenomenon to the fullest. In 1994, Jordan, an FBI agent, was sent to investigate a complaint about a disturbance in Mia's condominium complex. Normally the FBI would not investigate a domestic problem, but this particular call involved an ex-FBI agent, and the FBI wanted a backgrounder on the case. Jordan and Mia first met face-to-face during lunch to discuss the problem. Their conversation ranged from the complaint at hand to mutual interests in the UFO phenomenon. Jordan disclosed that while working for the FBI, he sometimes investigated UFO reports and X-File material. Jordan's manner was charming, professional and intelligent. He expressed a genuine interest in Mia, which surprised her, as he was 20 years her junior. The following day Jordan called Mia to discuss details of the case he had come to investigate. His candor and friendliness towards Mia almost caught her off guard. His expertise, gentlemanly manners, and risky job fascinated her. Jordan graduated from Duke University, had been involved in naval intelligence and the CIA. Although impressive, Mia remained reticent about trusting too quickly. She was not interested in developing any kind of relationship that could lead to sexuality because, 2 years prior to meeting Jordan, Mia had decided to remain celibate, primarily so she could concentrate her efforts on spirituality and personal growth. Jordan called Mia often, sometimes several times a day, just to chat. Mia sensed that Jordan sent out a voice that indicated he was interested in getting romantically involved. She maintained the friendship because of Jordan's interest in the UFO phenomenon. Mia wondered what Jordan's true motives were and thought that his entrance into her life could be a setup of some sort involving surveillance. She had, after all, become moderately immersed in UFO research. Mia had been able to confirm through a private investigator named Andy, that she was under some type of surveillance. Andy came to her condo and swept the place for bugs. There were none, but a high and irregular impedance on her phone line indicated that the phone might be tapped. Even though Jordan was married and had 3 children, he continued to make amorous overtures towards Mia. He said he and his wife were on the outs and were having serious problems. Mia rebuffed Jordan's advances, but Jordan seemed to take it all in good stride and continued to call daily, just to see how Mia was doing. Unbeknownst to Mia, Jordan tracked down Andy and implied that he would have his license revoked if he didn't steer clear of Mia, but by saying that, he made Andy even more aware that Mia was, in fact, under investigation and that Jordan was surveilling her, trying to pose as a suitor or lover to find out what she knew. When Andy told this to Mia much later, they both grew very angry and yet neither Andy nor Mia could figure out why Jordan would want to investigate her. Andy was so alarmed by Jordan's threats that he told his wife all about the incident in case something happened. One clue did stand out. While Jordan was threatening Andy, he said, "All that UFO stuff she is involved in is a bunch of crap. Stay away from her." Jordan apparently had the authority to make a threat like that and Andy did back off, yet neglected to tell Mia about this threat until many months later. Mia decided to play coy in order to see if Jordan was fishing for anything specific. In reality, Mia had no idea what was going on. Had she stumbled across something classified in her research? Thousands of people read UFO material every day and usually they are not investigated by the FBI. Note, it seems the FBI has played an integral role in a number of UFO cases, specifically the Linda Cortile case mentioned earlier. In that case, an FBI officer was also roped in and used as a guinea pig. This happens often in undercover drug cases, where the agent winds up addicted or abusing the very substance he or she was sent to observe. The next day, while on the phone with Jordan, Mia casually mentioned Andy, her private detective friend, and his confirmation that her phone was tapped. Jordan made an excuse to get off the phone quickly, but not before calling Andy a liar. Early on in their relationship, Jordan expressed a deep desire to be Mia's protector. At the time, his chivalrous mannerisms amused Mia and she delighted in his company and friendly conversations. Jordan admitted that he believed he had missing time episodes in his life and wondered if he also had alien encounters. As their friendship deepened, Mia and Jordan experienced daydreams of having been with one another before. Very often either one of them could complete each other's sentence and know exactly what they were thinking. Inexplicably, Mia felt a very strong, psychic, soul connection to Jordan, and Jordan was falling in love with Mia and told her so. He couldn't help himself. He made excuses just to visit and call Mia on a daily basis. Throughout this time, Mia and Jordan witnessed a whole variety of phone static, unusual clicks, beeps, and obvious surveillance. Meanwhile, Jordan's marriage showed signs of a very nasty breakup. His wife had had an affair years before which resulted in her giving birth to another man's baby. Jordan had been turned off to his wife ever since, and it was only a matter of time before they would be divorced, or so he thought. Jordan sensed that his relationship with Mia was governed by fate, or what he called kismet, and seemed to be somehow set up by forces beyond their control. Their connection to one another was so strong that the romantic tension between them escalated until Mia decided to let down her guard. 2 months into the relationship, Mia had a daydream which was out of character for her. She thought to herself, "It is time to have sex with Jordan, just to get it out of the way." When Mia communicated her decision to Jordan, he backed off. He reasoned that they were probably being watched and could be videotaped, with disastrous consequences. After Jordan rebuffed Mia's sexual advances, he made a sudden phone call from the kitchen phone. At Andy's urging, Mia routinely taped all phone messages and calls to and from her home. 2 days later, Mia was shocked to discover that Jordan's call was a fake. He acted as if he were talking to someone on the other end, but there was nothing on the line but a dial tone. Within hours of Mia's hearing the taped fake phone call, Jordan called from his office to report he was just approached by 2 unidentified intelligence agents. They warned him to avoid sexual contact with Mia. They told him other information involving Mia and about something that had happened in 1962. They also told him he was part of an alien experiment, a partial offspring of Mia's, and if they had consummated their love they would have been committing incest. Jordan was not sure how true this was. The simple probability would be about 10 billion to 1, so he began to investigate this incest angle. At least this is what he told Mia. Mia was skeptical because of the fake phone calls and all of the other ongoing shenanigans. Jordan did not relate the entire conversation to her at that time, and this acted against his credibility. He focused on 1962, asking, over and over again, if she could recall anything weird that happened when she was 19. It was as if he was suggesting she should invent an answer. Jordan finally told Mia that he was aware of 2 distinct intelligence gathering agencies, both unrelated to the FBI, who had taken an interest in their relationship. One group, perhaps working in conjunction with the alien agenda to orchestrate love matches, and another group, which made efforts to break the couple apart. It was as if the government was at war with itself on a secret level. A couple of weeks later, Jordan was called to do a special FBI training seminar in Atlanta. During his absence, Jordan's romantic ardor grew stronger, and so did the odd noises on Mia's phone. On several occasions, Mia noticed that Jordan's phone calls were muted. Luckily, Mia had set up her phone system to record everything onto a separate cassette machine, and, without question, some of the messages had been tampered with or deleted. When he returned from Atlanta, Mia thought Jordan might be flipping out. He claimed he set up an appointment with a psychologist who suggested he should undergo a hypnotic regression. Upon checking, Mia discovered that the psychologist scoffed at the use of hypnosis and did not even do regressions. After Jordan's alleged hypnosis session, he called Mia, very upset, mumbling something about an encounter with black-eyed creatures who touched him. Mia didn't believe any of this, but allowed Jordan to play out whatever contrived scenario he was following. She tried to console Jordan, but her efforts fell on deaf ears, and all Jordan could say was, "I don't know who to trust. I didn't ask or volunteer for this. I don't want to deal with it." In later conversations, Jordan did come clean to some extent. He mentioned a missing time or fugue state that took place in New York when he was a small child, and another incident that took place while attending college at Duke University in North Carolina. Showing signs of paranoia, Jordan told Mia, "I don't want to go anywhere near you. This is connected to you." Mia didn't know what he was talking about and was hurt by his sudden rejection. Jordan implied that she was either an alien or part alien, and was somehow a major player in the bizarre saga that was unfolding for both of them. Several days later, Jordan calmed down and called Mia in a more reasonable mood. Again he asked if she could recall what happened to her in 1962. Obviously, Jordan, or his superiors, knew something that Mia didn't, and the pieces of his puzzle were starting to come together. Whatever this puzzle was, it profoundly frightened him. He was able to make some sense out of the constant surveillance, phone problems, being moved from one place to another, especially to Houston, where he was handed his Division 5 special project. On reflection, he was beginning to see Mia's connection to UFOs and aliens, their set-up romantic attraction to one another, paranormal phenomena, and lastly, secret information pointing to their powerful soul-level connection and the fact that they might be related by an alien breeding program or a human mind control program. Mia struggled to remember what might have happened in 1962. She recalled being a college student at the University of Tampa, living in the dorms with a roommate named Cheryl. One evening Mia accompanied Cheryl to a local Tampa beach. They drove in Cheryl's seafoam blue Chevy Impala convertible. Cheryl intended to meet her boyfriend Randy there and convinced Mia to come along despite Mia's gut feeling that something was wrong about this trip. The beach was isolated, except for Randy. He was digging in the trunk of his white Corvette for some tools. Grabbing a car jack, Randy walked over to a nearby boat trailer and removed the tires, stealing them right in front of Cheryl and Mia, as if they weren't even there. Fearing the police would come, Mia begged Cheryl to leave. Mia could only remember her intense fear of wanting to get out of there. She couldn't place any significance to this date or any event in 1962. Jordan was onto something, but what? Was this just another ruse to make Mia think something happened in 1962? Years later, she would discover this was a probable cover memory for an abduction scenario. Jordan kept Mia in suspense. 2 days after his mysterious phone call about the year of 1962, he called again, speaking cryptically and with paranoia. He acted as if he knew they were being monitored. Jordan insisted that the year of 1962 was the center of everything. He apologetically told Mia that everything he had previously told her was true, or what he believed to be true, and he apologized for his brusque and rough and tumble tone. He did not, however, recant his belief that Mia was at the center of things and that she had a repressed connection to aliens. Mia asked, "What about your feelings for me? Were they just part of the window dressing?" Jordan could only reassure her that he loved her. Mia commented, "I feel like a rat in a maze run by spooks." Fearing surveillance himself and realizing that his job and pension were in jeopardy, Jordan whispered, "Nothing could be closer to the truth." He promised to do everything in his power to find out and tell Mia what this mess was all about. Mia pressed Jordan for more answers. "Is there any connection between you and me in all of this, or is it just happenstance?" Jordan chuckled, "There couldn't be a stronger connection." Still perplexed, Mia asked, "Then what do you think the connection is?" "Yes, I guess I can tell you, this has to do with what I mentioned the other day, the 1962 incident." Mia paused, skeptical about the differences in their ages. "Were you born then?" Before Jordan could answer, he hung up the phone. Mia's mind raced. Thunderstruck, she gasped, "Oh my God! It couldn't be possible." She sat there shaking her head no, over and over. Jordan is 32 years old. Mia thought. Could this be possibly alluding to the fact that I am his mother? Could this be the cosmic connection through some kind of alien harvesting? Could Jordan be the result of my egg and some kind of alien genetic incubation? It all seemed to be too bizarre to be real. Mia could never have children. Throughout her life Mia had problems with her menstrual cycle and with fertility. She was unable to conceive, a fact she discovered during her first marriage. Mia had no maternal instincts towards Jordan, just an inexplicably strong bond, a spiritual and loving one, a feeling of agape, but no overt tendency towards sexuality. Jordan, on the other hand, felt a strong sexual urge. What was this all about? A few days after Jordan's whisper call, Mia received a strange message on her answering machine. A mechanical, computerized sounding voice uttered a particular address, 6 times over. It was not a familiar address, but some remote truck farm with existing crops near a detention camp for Cubans and Haitians not far from Homestead Air Force Base. There was also a radar antenna station for the Navy there. Mia couldn't see anything relevant here other than an overt psychological surveillance, PSYOP, game. She mentioned this to Jordan, and he warned her not to go there. Jordan called again in a few days using a cellular phone. He indicated that Mia's distrust and misgivings about their relationship, and the inconsistencies that arose between them, were to be expected, as if all their interactions were planned. Jordan maintained, for whatever reasons, I must operate under the conclusion that the whole relationship was a planned thing. Mia was thoroughly confused, but Jordan insisted he was onto what was happening between them, and promised to tell her everything once he had it all pieced together. Within a few days Jordan was called, by government agents, to visit Dulce, New Mexico and Nellis Air Force Base near Las Vegas, Nevada. Dulce is a few minutes jet ride from Roswell, New Mexico, and Nellis is said to be the gateway to Area 51, which is near Rachel, Nevada. Both of these sites are highly associated with aliens and covert operations. Of all of the places to be sent, why was Jordan sent to these two particular enclaves? Apparently Jordan was allowed to visit these top-secret facilities because of his real rank within the FBI. It turned out Jordan was no ordinary FBI agent, and he probably knew about everything long before he fell in love with Mia. Years later, Mia discovered that Jordan was given information about his situation, and about Mia, on that particular mini-tour. Jordan was aware that some of what he was privy to may be disinformation, but to the best of his knowledge he believed it to be true. The information Jordan obtained on the visit to Nellis and Dulce is condensed and paraphrased in a letter he secretly sent to Mia. This letter contained a series of consistent typos and misspelled words, as if they were some kind of binomial code, sort of like the code supposedly inserted into the Shakespeare folio of 1614. To date, Mia has not been able to crack the code, but she is assured there is a hidden cipher in it. Jordan simply dropped out of Mia's life after the letter and she heard nothing from him for 2 years. At the time he wrote the letter, Jordan intended not to see Mia again, but years later he did contact her and explained everything. The letter was blacked out and censored in parts, but its substance is paraphrased as follows: Mia, there is a conspiracy going on involving government knowledge and collusion with several extraterrestrial races visiting this planet. I have been advised by government sources that my birth was the result of genetic intervention by alien beings. My real birth mother was unable to conceive naturally. In her efforts to have a child, a donor egg was obtained from another woman, Mia, and her genetic material erased from the egg. Nuclear DNA extracted, my real mother's DNA was then inserted. Then this altered DNA was fertilized with my father's sperm. I also believe I have been conditioned to seek employment with the US government. I then realized that I had been deliberately and artfully placed into contact with the egg donor/mother used to conceive me. Mia, I understood this was an alien effort to determine the influence of a non-tangible energy field or perhaps mitochondrial DNA factor in human emotional interaction bonding. There are several government agents who were apparently aware of this alien orchestrated, incestuous, bonding drama and tried to contradict the alien efforts to government's interference as an effort to prevent an incestuous relationship and maintain some sense of dignity. The agents are a small faction of the Department of the Navy or DON. The DON's purpose is to direct extraordinarily unique activities in relation to extraterrestrial EBs, extraterrestrial biological entities and alien technologies, primarily to combat alien operations, which are hostile to the national security of the U.S. Basically, gathering and exploiting alien technologies and containment of premature disclosure of information, security, regarding the alien agenda and activities. The Greys are genetically similar to humans and they are creating various human-alien hybrids. The purpose is to create a hardy elite hybrid species, which would be initially capable of forming the leading elements of Grey society as well as serving a similar role in human society. The hybrids would also be able to survive the destructive ecological changes that the Greys believe will take place in Earth's near future. The use of bioelectronic implants is incorporated into the central nervous system of the abductees for the primary purpose of mind control. The Dawn conducts extensive surveillance and monitoring of abductees who are part of an ongoing program of manipulation of the human gene pool by competing non-human alliances, the reptilian species. Apparently, the genetic manipulation was initially taken on by the reptilian species to direct certain human traits in ways favorable to the reptilians. Their main focus is in the United States and some of its allies. A leading economic and military study has determined that the reptilian efforts in this area are amounting to long-term sabotage. This is one of the reasons for the Dawn's efforts to counter the reptilian-directed human genetic sabotage. The alien Greys and reptilians routinely attempt to erase the abduction-related memories of those they abduct. The Dawn has exploited the Grey mind control technology as well. Unfortunately, these same memory erasure methods are also used on government personnel in relation to work done on extremely sensitive projects such as these. However, these methods are not always foolproof and disinformation is added to the screen memories of the individual. Some personnel are also programmed to not allow themselves to get hypnotically regressed or to be medically examined by unauthorized personnel, especially if they have implants in their bodies. In addition to the above, there is an ongoing program of gradual societal conditioning to accept the existence and influence of the alien presence in Earth's history, undertaken by the Dawn. This is done to prevent cultural disintegration in case too much information is leaked out into the population. I was told the Greys desire to overtly reveal themselves to human society by the turn of the century. This letter is the truth to the best of my knowledge. Love, Jordan. Jordan's letter came as no surprise, but its completeness was frightening, and it sounded almost like a confessional. It certainly wasn't authorized. Mia had heard of this kind of thing before. She still wanted some kind of proof. Was she being played for a sucker again? She just couldn't trust him anymore. Jordan called Mia around Valentine's Day, 1995. Just to say goodbye. He did not want to continue the relationship because of the Oedipal implications, but he wanted to part company as friends. He could not tell her where he was going, only that he was moving far away and that he would be impossible to find. In November of 1996, Mia underwent a hypnotic regression with a professional therapist in an attempt to find out what happened in 1962, if anything. At the time, Mia still remained skeptical of the things Jordan disclosed to her in the letter. During Mia's regression, she recalled an unsettling incident. When she was 17, she was taken to a military airfield near a beach, by a man named Sullivan and other unknown men. From the airfield she was flown on a propeller-driven troop transport plane to a secret location in Mexico. Nobody seemed to know Sullivan's first name, everybody called him just plain Sullivan or Sully. One thing was certain, this man wielded an incredible amount of decision-making power. She believes she may have been flown from MacDill Air Force Base in Florida across the Gulf of Mexico. Once there, Mia was examined by several suave and well-dressed men. They checked her over to see if she was right for this project. Her memory is disjointed, but she believes that during this incident she was turned over to a medical team dressed in lab coats and masks and that one of her ovaries was harvested for its eggs. In other words, the alien obstetric technology was available, at that time, to extract several individual ova without harming the oviducts or the ovaries, per Southeast. She remembers a very bright light in the room. At one point, Mia remembered the Sullivan character telling her to shut up. She was then placed on a smaller plane and sent back to her hometown in Florida. She remembers two benches facing each other in this small plane and recalls hearing something about Mexico above the roar of the propellers. From that point in the regression, Mia's mind leapt forward to the next event. Immediately she found herself in an agitated state in Central Park, New York City, sometime in the mid-1960s. Mia sat on a park bench watching a small group of children of preschool age, playing and giggling. A female with the demeanor of a Nazi prison guard in a white blouse and dark skirt, seemed to be in charge of the children. The woman ordered Mia to look at the children and pointed at a particular young boy. Mia resisted the woman's suggestion and said, "I'm not interested in children now." The woman in charge told Mia to look at the young boy because she will see him later in life as an adult. "You will recognize him," the woman said, "you will know him by his eyes." At that moment in the regression, Mia became severely agitated and broke out of the trance. Clearly she had run into a knot of repressed material, very upsetting stuff. Mia knew in her soul that the young boy was Jordan, and the puzzle started to come together. She wanted to believe she was making up the story about this rude character named Sullivan, but she later found confirmation of his corporeal existence. One of Mia's friends, present at the regression, an ex-army officer, knew of Sullivan and was aware he was always assigned to black ops, black operation projects that are kept secret from the public, jobs. Later the officer was able to identify the man as William Sullivan, who, during the Vietnam War, was third in command of the CIA. In that capacity Sullivan answered to both CIA and Pentagon bosses and was supposedly also reporting directly to J. Edgar Hoover on certain projects. We know now that one of the projects was the surveillance of the Kennedys and Martin Luther King. Further information, obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, pegged this same William Sullivan as the founder of COINTELPRO, a cutout corporation, using an acronym for Co-Intelligence Project, as their colophon. As its name implies, COINTELPRO was, among other things, a conduit between the CIA, the FBI, NSA, and the Pentagon. The Space Administration, NASA, was a Kennedy powerhouse at that time, and was clearly out of the UFO loop. Valuable operatives like Sullivan rarely retire. Before dropping out of sight, he managed to co-opt staff from Houston's FBI Division 5, merge them with his loyal COINTELPRO operatives, and mold the whole group into a new super-secret security agency working inside NASA. I stress, this was NASA after 1968, after the Kennedy influence fell away. With his information on your desk, how could you not wonder if the Star Wars initiative was so far off? Up until that time NASA had never lost a satellite. They either blew up or went into orbit. But after the SWI, the Star Wars initiative took off, suddenly we have about 24 missing satellites. Are they all really missing, or were they simply reassigned? Sullivan's legacy group was so dark it didn't even have an acronym or a name, but it did have entree to all NASA programs and all aspects of any work being done for NASA by subcontractors. Sullivan's internal agency survived without him into the late 1970s and included, in their black bag of tricks, a conduit through Lockheed for development of the Glomar Explorer, a Cold War spy ship parading as a manganese nodule mining craft. Military intelligence reports lists William Sullivan as a retired officer who died alone in a mysterious hunting accident in the 1980s, but one really wonders. How can a spook of this stature die alone in a hunting accident unless he shot himself? In any case, it is doubtful Sullivan died at all, and he is probably still alive acting as a consultant in some capacity. Rumors persist that he is in Ireland. 2 months after Mia's regression in January of 1997, Jordan made Mia a surprise telephone call to Mia. Remember that Jordan vowed he would probably never call her again, and yet here he was, bright as a button. He claimed he was vexed by all that had happened and expressed a desire to re-establish their relationship. Mia no longer believed him and sensed he was still working for a black ops group. But, instead of hanging up, she wisely took the opportunity to ask Jordan some barbed questions about the past few years, and his past in general. She did not inform him that she had done a little data gathering on her own, and she specifically skipped any mention of the several hypnotic regression sessions. During their last call, Jordan told Mia about an incident in his childhood in which he was taken to Central Park in New York City with a small playgroup. Jordan dutifully told Mia where he had been since he sent the long confessional letter. In January 1997 he was transferred from his Florida office to the FBI Division 5 in Houston, ostensibly to work with security for the Space Administration main offices nearby. Bill Sullivan was acting as CIA liaison in the Division 5 office in Houston at that time, and broke away to form a cloak security group at the Space Agency. Not near the Space Agency, in the Space Agency. Is this the same Sully, who Mia remembers flying her over the Gulf of Mexico? After 7 weeks of renewed friendship and daily calls, Mia decided to cut off contact with Jordan. She sensed a troubling warble in his voice. She again felt that Jordan was up to his old tricks and was trying to pump her for information. In their last conversations, Jordan, in a confessional tone, told Mia that he had originally been sent in to neutralize her. Mia pressed Jordan to explain what that meant, but all he said is that it wasn't to kill her. Was this just to make sure she couldn't harm the program? Jordan also confessed that, after several years of contact, he himself grew suspicious about the FBI's true motives and realized that the political neutralization task could be merely a cover for whatever else he could feed back to his superiors, whoever they were. He honestly admitted to Mia that he thought he was being used to some degree for another purpose and he did not like it. He believed that the true reason had something to do with their relationship and the emotional bonding they shared. At Mia's suggestion they broke off all communication and, after February 1997, she never heard from Jordan again. In June of that year Mia discovered through a mutual friend that Jordan was dead. His obituary was printed in the Miami newspaper. Shocked by the news, Mia investigated the Houston newspaper to find the same obituary printed verbatim, almost like it was a contrived press release. Had Jordan followed the same path as Bill Sullivan? Was he really dead, or had his identity changed? If Jordan did die, then how? The obituary gave no details. In an effort to get away from it all, Mia took a trip to New York City with a girlfriend named Elaine. Mia told Elaine about Jordan's obituary, and stressed that she still wanted to know how he died. A series of coincidences transpired with Elaine, who just happened to have a friend whose son-in-law worked for the FBI in the Miami office and had just transferred from Houston. Elaine was able to confirm through the son-in-law that Jordan committed suicide. He apparently drove to the Woodlands Cemetery, a bedroom community outside of Houston, and shot himself in the head while listening to the radio in his car. Mia believes that Jordan was not the type of person to commit suicide. She was unable to find out any more information until another set of synchronicities presented themselves during the July 4, 1997, Roswell 50th Anniversary UFO Conference in Roswell, New Mexico. Mia attended the conference and set up a booth near the auditorium to sell her books, The Essays. A man walked up to her booth and struck up a conversation. Mia told the man that she had just discovered, only a month earlier, that Jordan had committed suicide. The man apparently was a reporter for a Houston city magazine and was now working on a city magazine in Albuquerque. He asked Mia, "Hey, was he a young guy with a bunch of kids?" Mia answered, "Yes, he had 4 kids." "Oh, God, he shot himself in the head." The reporter seemed shocked. Several other young agents committed suicide that year and nobody knows why. Mia's bewilderment deepened. Why wasn't this suicidal epidemic followed up by the FBI in Washington? Is suicide an occupational hazard with federal agents? Mia doubted it. Many agents work a full lifetime and take a double pension. More unexplained questions arose when Mia probed further. Upon returning to Houston, she discovered that Jordan was cremated in a memorial service with no casket and his ashes were scattered by his wife and kids. No autopsy was taken. Mia still hopes Jordan may be alive somewhere. Chapter 12. Andrew. Andrew, a single male abductee in his 30s, has had difficulty maintaining long-term relationships with women due primarily to alien interference. Andrew toured Europe and Great Britain in 1992. While visiting the Scottish Highlands, he fell in love with a beautiful, affectionate and mild-natured woman named Sharon. 2 months into the romantic relationship, a tall, tan/gray alien and a shorter, dark blue alien in a hooded cloak visited the sleeping couple. Andrew recalled the first part of the abduction with the tan figure, and remembered asking the being, You don't want me, do you? You want her, don't you? But as soon as he saw the tall being, feelings of fear and foreboding overcame him and the memory faded. Sharon appeared seriously distraught and emotionally distant the next morning. The look on her face was one of anger and disgust. Normally, after Sharon awakened in the morning, she would cuddle and talk with Andrew, get dressed and silently leave with a goodbye kiss. This particular morning Sharon immediately got out of bed, dressed hurriedly, answering Andrew's small talk with sharp, monosyllabic words, rarely even looking at him. Sharon's countenance bore a mixture of fear, confusion and disgust. She quickly left the house, slamming the door behind her, as if she wanted to run away from something that haunted her. Later, Andrew discovered that during that night, the smaller, cloaked alien jabbed Sharon in the side with a pointy, spear-like object as the entity warned her to stay away from Andrew, and left her petrified. Even though Sharon found a red triangular mark on her body the next morning, she assumed it was just a horrible dream. Figure 5, Abductee's rendition of alien inserted mental imagery evoking feelings of jealousy and unrequited love. Less than 2 weeks later, Sharon no longer had amorous feelings for Andrew and seemed to be switched off. She soon broke off the relationship, leaving Andrew grief-stricken. A couple of months later the aliens revisited Andrew. In this encounter he remembered graphic imagery of his girlfriend, Sharon being a slut, having sexual relations with his best friend, making it appear that his best friend has cheated on him behind his back. This invoked feelings of intense jealousy, rage and unrequited love for his ex-girlfriend, Sharon. In the next relationship of Andrew's the aliens again interfered. At the time, Andrew was traveling the Bavarian Alps and started working at a ski resort high up in the German/Austrian mountaintops. Andrew was still trying to get over the last broken relationship with Sharon and wanted to meet another woman for companionship and fun. Thoughts about the Greys were always lurking in the back of Andrew's mind. He thought that perhaps if he didn't get involved in a serious relationship, the aliens wouldn't interfere this time. He was wrong. Andrew became romantically friendly with a Dutch woman named Ingrid while working at the Bavarian resort. They spent the night together one evening and snuggled, sleeping in bed together. The tall 10 gray aliens paid them a visit that night. Ingrid did not remember the alien visitation they both shared that night. But Andrew recalled climbing out of bed that night to open the bedroom door and facing him was the tall, 10 grays. He became upset and asked the gray alien tearfully, "Why are you always interfering?" At that moment Andrew turned back to see Ingrid, who was sitting almost upright in bed, her face contorted in horror, frozen into a silent scream, then wham! Within seconds of his request, Andrew experienced intense pain and blacked out. The next morning Andrew noticed a dramatic change in Ingrid's facial expression and demeanor. She had the same look of disgust on her face, as he had seen on his previous girlfriend's face after their alien encounter. Andrew's heart sank. He knew what this meant. Before he could even ask Ingrid what was wrong, her formerly amicable attitude changed from indifference to outright nastiness and the love affair ended. Andrew's persistence at pressing the aliens for an answer was met with a barrage of platitudes such as, "She wasn't one of us. You are one of us. She wasn't necessary, not part of it. She doesn't understand us." And the notorious, "You are not ready yet to know." After both of these broken off relationships the aliens projected into Andrew's mind seductive images of a beautiful, exotic Tahitian woman with children, implying that this was Andrew's future wife and kids. The understood message, according to Andrew, was, "If you stick with us and do as we say, this is what we will give you." It never happened. Andrew believes that the Greys interfere with his relationships because romantic relationships provide a strong distraction to their ultimate use for him. The aliens are akin to jealous lovers who want their abductees all to themselves, for their own purposes. Today, Andrew is dating again. He remains untrusting toward the aliens and has taken extra precautions to be upfront and honest about his alien encounters with his current girlfriend. Even with the odds against him, Andrew maintains a positive and victorious attitude in eventually overcoming these obstacles and has had some success in resisting abductions.